Yes or no?
I believe everybody is vaccinated.
We have the public. The policy is to wear masks. We have anything else? We have masks out there, right?
Let me get,
Oh, right.
we have a box of masks. Let me go get it.
Sorry.
I don't believe that this one is live. So we're just gonna have to use that microphone. I don't think this one is live.
I would really appreciate
The one on the webinar. It just is what it is. Unfortunately. I thought it was also, for some reason, I decided not to. Should I did it before it was.
So our time is.
There's still a switch on this. Let's see if I should go into,
the record.
yeah. Executive session.
All right, well, we will call this meeting to order, and we will start with the pledge of allegiance. Trustee Workman, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will start with the approval of the minutes. They're in everybody's packet. The minutes was approved overnight, in case you have any additions or deletions.
Somebody did come.
Trustee Grant. Any comments on the pledge? Sorry. Any comments on the minutes?
Claire, good pledge.
All right, I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Treasurer's report. Our treasurer just went to escort one of our residents home from Bell. So if you have any questions, Ronnie will try and answer them.
I can answer
But I think
questions.
it's all in order.
Okay, let's see. If anybody in one time?
Make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I reviewed everything, I'll second it.
Okay, that's now a motion by the mayor, second by deputy mayor, all in favor?
Aye.
Second.
Here's architecture review.
Sure, so this is the October 25th meeting of the Architecture Review Committee. Just going down the list, 35 Birchville Lane, we had a new dwelling. We had some comments on that, including one to adjust perhaps the house location or something for an existing tree towards the rear of the house, a large oak tree, I believe it was. And some other comments, so that's was approved with those conditions. 25 Woodville Lane is driveway piers, that was approved for your approval. 54 Elder Fields was the second floor addition, that was approved as submitted for your approval. 41 Crabapple, that's a corner lot, they were proposing the second curb cut on the street, with driveway piers. That was approved as submitted. 99 Birch was driveway piers, that was approved. We had 1045 Northern Boulevard, that was a sign application. We did a review, and that's for your review here tonight. We had a return on 16 Bonnie Heights Road. There was a pool pavilion. There was a minor modification to that. Same profile, same roof line, but some wall changes, and that was approved.
I know Trustee Lewandowski, we talked about some concerns with 1045 Northern Boulevard and the sign. I think we want to pull that one and have a conversation about the height of the sign. Appreciate the work the architectural review did, but I think we got some concerns with the design and the height based off conversations I had. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jared, is the,
Do we have any representatives?
vendor here or not?
We do not.
All right, so they were supposed to be on the calendar, but maybe they forgot. So anyway, just, I put a could have still presented, I think.
Yeah.
So that at least the board could see what they were thinking of. But, yeah, I mean, I think we should proceed on that.
All right, so we'll proceed unless, are there any comments or questions about the others?
I just have a question. Is that because the code mandates the height of the sign and it would need a variance?
No.
Oh,
Well, it's,
because we thought the height, the required height in the code is a little high, a bit high.
So I think there's questions based on the design that have come up around compliance with the code, and there's some differing opinions about that. And then I think there's questions about the overall design, right? That's how I
Okay,
frame
I
it.
just wanted to make sure we didn't need to retool the side dimensions that are in the code.
And they might be simply addressed with a conversation with the applicant, so.
So for the applicants, are we coming back to the next review board meeting? Are we giving them direction?
No, I don't think we need to go back to Park. I think let's try and, among the board members with concerns, and you, Peter, try and address them, see if they are open to that solution, and if not, then we can kind of figure out a way forward with them. Okay? Does that sound like a plan, Gary?
sure.
Any other questions on any other items from the architectural review?
So, does anybody have a motion to approve the findings of the architectural review committee?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Wojciechowski, do I hear a second?
I'll say.
Trustee Frankel, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Rich is not here right now. Our engineer is, and we did get a third statement from American Paving today.
Yep. We sent you ours, which is
Yes.
pretty much half of what they're asking for. So they do have some more punch list items that they need to
Yeah.
complete, and I'm holding back quite a bit of money from them until they take care of that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
In addition to that, just I had a resident today on Knollwood, which is adjacent to Bayberry. I guess it would be on the west side of the property. They just wanted to bring to the attention where they cut into Knollwood, I guess where the line is where the old street ended and the new pavement began. That some of, I would call it tar, but some of the pavement was raised a little bit, and they're fearing the water's going to get underneath, freeze and crack. So if we could just add that to the punch list, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want to send me an email or something?
Yeah, I'll send it.
Yeah, send it, and then send it to me, and
Yeah, because I know.
I'll update the
I know how to
punch list.
write it down, you know.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else have any questions about the road work? Anything else for Steve? I know Peter, yes, Peter spoke with, the owner of, Stony Town.
Mhm.
And did you guys talk about it?
No,
We can talk, yeah.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Okay, so, I'll look for, my report, first I just wanted to mention that we had FEMA here, last Thursday and Friday, taking applications for, Hurricane Ida damage. And we had, over 2 days, we had 26 people came and made applications with a good number. In your packet is the meeting calendar for next year. I asked that you look at the dates for the Board of Trustees meetings and let me know if there's anything that wouldn't work for you. I think it's pretty much clear full holidays, but, I don't have kids in school anymore, so I'm not quite sure. So if you could just look that over, I appreciate it. And also the holiday schedule is there. The other thing I just wanted to mention is about the software is getting a laser piece, and that we want to purchase through the American Recovery Act. The reason we put it on hold is that that kind of use has not been specifically approved by the Treasury Department. I've been in touch with NICOM, and NICOM's opinion is that if we can justify the purchase, which would be that it would enable residents and other users to access documents, forms, anything else they might need information-wise from the village, without having to make an in-person visit, thus, keeping the spread of COVID under control. That NICOM felt that would be acceptable. Can they guarantee it? No. The other thing that just came out this week is that the Treasury Department has also started to, has added to the list of accepted uses roadwork and road reconstruction. So, you know, we may be able to do some budgetary switches to get the storm clear that we need. Finally, we are working on the loss of revenue as a means of getting what we need without having to jump through hoops. We just got our audit report, which I'm still reviewing. I'll forward to you all as soon as I'm done. Shows that we did have a loss of revenue between 20 and 21. Our auditor and accountant is working on the formula, which is quite complex. So I'm hoping that that will be the way that we can move forward with this. And that's all I have.
So, but based on our last conversation, I think the revenue loss may not have been large enough for the entire amount that was allocated to the village, correct?
That's what my thought was.
Okay,
But they're doing a look back to 2018 on lost revenue.
okay.
So we have all those years to add up, to come up with, you know, our number.
So takeaway is we're still doing the revenue loss analysis. If that comes through, then it's pretty simple. We can use the money towards anything we want. If not, then we gotta use it for what is justifiable means.
So as much money as we can get into the first category would be
Yes.
more
Right,
flexible.
that's like they do whatever you want with the category.
Right.
And we've also contacted the federal elected officials, letting them know
Thank you.
our concerns. Okay? Meeting calendar, talked about meeting calendar. All right, attorney's report.
Sure. Just briefly, to the extent that
Later.
it's not otherwise protected by attorney-client, I would just let people know that there was a decision in one of the matters involving Exonet and a neighboring village that being Plando Manor and the decision went against the village following summary judgment. If board members have questions that they would like to ask of me, I'd be happy to talk to any board member about that. There's also a pending matter as to Plando Manor, in which they had a long argument but no decision yet. So in our case, there's still no decision and we're still waiting. And I'll keep following up with that, Ross, about that.
Still maintaining the center.
Moving on to the zoning board of appeals, there were two matters that went to decision. And I apologize for not having a written report beforehand, but I do now. The first of which that I'll talk about is the second on the sheet. This is at 38 Old Pine, and what you'll notice is it's a de minimis request, quite frankly, for a variance of FAR or freeze of reference for floor area. And essentially what had happened, I'm so sorry, I ended up on short. Essentially what happened is they were taking a bay window and sort of expanding it in the back for more space. It wouldn't be visible on the board approved. The second application, as you can see, was a bit more involved, and that's at, if I could just read along with you, it's 7 Overhill Lane. And I'll just turn to Mr. Albinski a bit for this because that was a bit more involved. The board felt that, particularly as to the shed, which was pre-existing, the other portions of the application, that it was in keeping with the criteria of the code, so approved that.
Yeah, the overall was, the impact was low to the surrounding neighbors.
And that is my report for ZBA. The other matters were either adjourned or withdrawn.
I think for the record, 7 Overhill is not a corner property.
Oh, did I mistake that? My apologies. My apologies.
Well, basically, the zoning board of appeals asked them to go back to the drawing board and come back with a plan that reduces the front yard coverage.
Right, but just for the record, it says corner lot, just want to check records.
All right, I'll be sure. It's corrected. And the other case, like that Mr. Bookoff mentioned, was on Crabapple, a pre-existing house that was had been built according to code, and I think it was 1994. But it's a very, very large house of over 8,000 square feet. And they came in and were asking for variance to expand in order to kind of square off their space. And I think the board, Mr. Oblinsky, offered some great feedback to them. They're going also back to the drawing board and coming back with a much reduced plan.
Yeah, that house was built right prior to the change in code where they added FAR, so at that time, there was no concession for ceiling heights, so when you take into account the ceiling height, there, it's like 10,000 square foot house, with 12-foot ceilings on the first floor. That all pre-existed. What they were doing, sort of netted out the square footage, but we were looking for a further reduction as far as the volume. So we had an idea of reducing one of the roof areas on that. So it was challenging based on, I think it may have been the reason why the code changed, because it was right at the date when right after that application came in, 2 months later, the code changed. Before it was just, you couldn't go more than a certain footprint. And the new code then went to FAR, and other aspects with the ceiling heights that also limited the volume. So.
Excuse me, you said FAR. What does FAR stand for?
Floor area ratio.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Young, policy here is that people need to have a mask on since it's a
Oh.
public meeting.
There are masks on the
Or masks
table.
outside.
I don't do masks, actually.
Mr. Young?
I won't say anything. I won't say anything again until it's my turn to speak.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
the masks are available and you need to wear one.
Where's the mask available?
Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to mention to the board that.
By the way, what science is this based upon that we have to wear masks?
CDC recommendations.
The same guys who basically told us the Wuhan flu didn't come from Wuhan lab?
Excuse
Those
me.
guys?
Right, that's okay.
No, I just
So-
want to commend Mr. Oblinsky, tell the board how lucky I think we are to have him, because he came up with this really brilliant solution to the problem of the Crabapple house. And I don't think any of the building inspector would have the talent or the knowledge to, make that suggestion, and my hats are off to you. It was really a great solution.
Yeah, 10,000 square feet seems rather large for our community, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just had a question for Mr. Woodcock. Have you been able to get in touch with Mr. Voorhees yet? Or do you want me to reach out to him?
I reached out to Mr. Voorhees. I did speak with him. He was away during at least the past week, so I'll follow up with him.
Okay,
He's more than willing to make time for
Awesome,
us.
thank you. Okay. Rich, what's going on with speed bump? Is that put in yet?
No, I'm waiting for the signs.
Oh, okay, so we ordered some signage to warn on drivers of the oncoming bump.
So it's a speed table,
It says speed hump.
okay, speed hump. It's not a speed bump though.
No,
It's
it's a
different
speed
as we
hump.
learn
Right.
through the process. We're putting it on Ridge Drive, correct?
Yep.
This is our first pilot, speed hump. And we're gonna install this one, make sure it goes well before we deploy the others, and, kind of give it a couple weeks to check out, so.
Hopefully by next week, I should get that signage to put that up.
All right, good. Thank you. And again, this was an effort to deal with speeding issues around the community, so.
And for the record, the placement is based off the traffic report from the traffic engineer.
Correct.
Mayor's report?
Hey, can I say something? I looked at
Hold on,
the
Mr.
CDC
Young.
guidelines.
Mr.
There's
Young.
nothing that says
Mr.
I have to
Young.
wear a mask.
Mr. Young, you're out of order. We're running an agenda here.
That's what I
There's a
did.
public comment period at the end if you would like to speak.
All right, there's nothing in the CDC guidelines that says I have to wear a
So
mask.
at this point,
That's fine.
we have.
Fine, go back to the agenda, I'm good.
So, we have prepared an intermunicipal agreement with the county. The village has signed off on it to take over Middle Neck Road. This is an issue that has been around for years. Finally came to agreement with the county. In talks with the county, it sounds like it's going to be on the agenda with the legislature for this month. We've sent a letter of support to all the legislators, informing them of the background on the issue. So our hope is that this will get approved by the county legislature this month. And then we would be able to take care of the road after, they would be able to take over the road after the county addressed the ponding issue down by the Greenway Gate. Thank you. So we will update everybody once we have that, and then we can start making improvements, and we can look into potentially addressing parking on that as well. And see, we have some residents here. I think we'll have some comments later on. All right, move on to the trustees report. Trustee Dorfman, National Grid.
Yeah, so I participated in the National Grid. This goes primarily on access to natural gas, which we know has become an issue in the Northeast quarter. So in the absence of extra product to go around, they are doing some thermal heat indexing for communities to determine ways that we can actually better insulate our buildings, other houses in the community, those that are losing heat. They're going to put some rebate programs together for houses that are able to correct this and reduce their gas usage. They are going to send some materials around on that, which of course we can share. That's Thank you.
So Ryan, when we get those, can we put those out through Constant Contact? And I can say, let's get them.
Yeah, I think we should definitely do one push on that.
Yeah.
That's really,
We're doing,
really interesting.
2 more follow-up meetings following one that I participated in. At that point, they will give us the deck that they use for the meeting and the materials to use it.
Thank you so much.
We can run to the food drive. So food drive is ongoing. Thank you to all those who have participated and contributed. One item that I want to note is that the Vincent Smith School has adopted our food drive as their big philanthropic effort. So we dropped 4 collection bins off at the school. The children have been collecting food and filling them up, so that's how their efforts too. So thank you to them, just encourage others to please consider.
Awesome, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
All right, so I know Ronnie has brought up in the past the wish for the village to migrate from a server-based email system to an online cloud-based email system. For those people who don't know, the server we have is probably 8 to 10 years old around here.
It's over 8 years old.
So it's past its recommended service life. And speaking of total solutions, it was something they recommended we replace that last year. But we were looking to go to the cloud instead, so we delayed the migration for a little bit. Just got the quote. I reviewed it. I asked Ronnie to do an email inventory. Found out that they wanted to give us 3 more licenses than we technically needed. We got rid of a couple of licenses. So that's going to save the village $537 from the initial quote, and that's actually a recurring thing, so we'll save the extra $500 every year as well. We're not having 3 extra email addresses. This is a pretty good solution. Everything being in the cloud, you've got the Barracuda backup. So I think all our data will be safe. Everything will be backed up. We don't have to worry about having a server. If the emails, if our server goes down, that's the end of pretty much village emails. So going to the cloud is the way to go. I think we're probably ready to vote on this if nobody else has any questions. This is the same topic we brought up for the last multiple months, but I finally got a good solid report from these guys.
I think it might be interesting to note that Manhasset Schools had some ransomware attack. And I believe with this cloud-based storage, God forbid anything happens, we would be much quicker to get back up and running.
Any questions from the board?
And also this allows us to work better remotely. And so if we do have another situation where Village Hall is closed, by everything being online like this, it's much simpler for all of our employees to be able to get their emails and work remotely.
So I would like to ask for a motion to approve.
Are we permitted to ask questions, by the way? The people?
Yeah,
Please
thank
step
you.
up, if you could please put on your mask.
I'm wearing it right now. So
You're actually not wearing it, Mr. Young.
Actually, I looked at the CDC guidelines. It doesn't say anything
Sir,
about wearing a mask.
okay, listen,
All
the
right,
policy
fine.
here
You got the
is
freaking
you
mask
wear
on,
a
right?
mask
Fine.
for the protection of
All right,
everybody. I don't
yes,
care if you don't believe in
exactly.
it.
Oh, so is this alternative cheaper than the previous alternative? Are we gonna save money as a village?
It's actually about the same cost.
Why don't we kind of go for a cost reduction mechanism in some place, a third-party provider? I'm sure they can do it more cheaply than we're doing it internally.
Well, this is actually through, consultants, you know. who-
Right,
who's a
right.
third-party provider.
This is through a third.
How many
party.
different providers have we actually gotten bids from?
Well, Microsoft is the product,
Right, okay, fine.
This is a government contract, I believe.
yeah.
So the pricing
Doesn't have
is,
to be good.
it's a government contract price for these.
So by the fact you're saying a government contract price, I'm suspicious.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
No,
Okay.
I
You're
think-
welcome.
Yeah, thank you. for
Thank you for your
You're welcome.
comments.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'd like to ask for a motion to approve, entering into contract for Microsoft 365.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Trustee Denise made the motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Trustee, Franco, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank
Mr.
you.
Young, please pull the mask up over your nose. If you want to hear the policy, if you don't want to hear the policy, you can.
But
leave.
again, just
You
make
understand.
clear it's a Flower Hill policy, not the CDC guidelines.
That's
I looked at the
based on
CDC guidelines,
guidance.
there's nothing
That's our
about
policy.
requiring
Thank you.
people to wear masks
All
indoors.
right,
It's
next
your
item on the
guideline.
agenda.
Just want to make sure that's clear to everyone in the audience.
You
Mr.
have
Young.
to be free to
Yes.
speak at the end of the meeting.
Jeff, I hear you, man.
Thank
Yell.
All right.
Oh, it's a new business now.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
New business, first item, we had an incident where, our building inspector went to an appointment that was scheduled and nobody was there, wasting his valuable time. And he mentioned that some of the other villages that he's familiar with do charge a fee for missed appointments. So we wanted to see if there was any interest, the board passing, that kind of fee.
Peter, this is happening regularly, happens a couple
Kind of
times a year.
frequently, yeah, this wasn't a one-off, you know, it's happening sort of more and more frequently.
What's the fee that other villages?
Yeah, you check what the other villages charge.
Yeah, I think even if it's something as nominal as $50, it would
I think $50 is what I've heard.
take their appointments. Or at least call if they're not gonna be there.
That's, failure to keep, is that being no-showed, or is that calling and just canceling?
Yeah, I mean, even if they call before he leaves the office, it's fine.
So no, this would be for no-show, basically.
Yeah.
So as long as they call before you leave the office, that's the only time the fee would be assessed. That's what-
Yeah, or even if I'm out and I didn't get there yet, I get a call from the office. that says,
Yeah,
"Well,
don't
it's
go
there."
there. Right.
So to approve a fee increase, then we would have to do a local law on this, or?
Yeah, so, so I would ask for a resolution to hold a hearing on a proposed local law to add a fee to the village code, for, a no-show inspection appointment.
Anybody opposed? I'd say in the meantime, we can have Ronnie do a survey of what other villages are charging. so we're better informed.
Just one question, I would assume if there were some, circumstances beyond the homeowner's control, it would.
Yeah, I was just taken away in an ambulance, you know.
Yeah, no, with discretion.
Just, I just don't know if that should be in the wording, that's
Yes.
all. I'm not-
Good call.
Hey, I have a question. Are there additional costs to the village on
Mr.
no-show
Young,
appointments?
Mr. Young,
Yes.
please, if you wish to ask a question.
Okay, I have a question.
They would wait,
Okay, I'll wait.
there's a protocol that they would
Okay,
follow,
fine.
which is you would ask to be recognized.
I have a question. I'm good.
Peter, is this is typically contractors, right? It's not like owners that are, or could it be possibly an owner?
It's usually the contractors, yeah. They forgot, or they weren't ready, or, it's more, and some of it is like they're not ready for the inspection, so that, to me, that's another.
Right, they should be fair to you,
If
and say
they
we're not
call and
ready.
they schedule, say, all right, we're looking at the dry well today, and I go, the village, as far into the village, I have to go through sometime. So it's a wasted trip.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, Peter, if you have an appointment and you go to it and there's nobody there, it needs to be canceled.
Yeah.
Other residents are not getting appointments because your time is being occupied somewhere else. It's fair to say that?
Well,
I still do everything on my list for the day, because I'm here beyond work hours anyway, so if I have to go beyond,
But I'm just saying, if there's another resident needs an appointment in that time slot, you're obviously not available. So now a resident on
Get bumped.
be bumped, and now this will hopefully open up your calendar so you can be more effective in doing inspections. That's
And
all.
well, you know, if this is put into place, I would let all the contractors know, so, you know, they have our phone number, and they can easily call, and, you know, even, you know, right before, and that's fine. It's just become more frequently, I've noticed.
I just think that on the building permit application itself, where we put down, you know, inspections are required, to put a, you know, big note on that, failure to keep an inspection, you know.
But realistically, unless there was some kind of like, you know, pipe burst or whatever, I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't advise you
Right.
12 or 24 hours in advance, that, hey, I'm not ready.
I mean, I'm hoping that if we just notify them that this could happen, that'll make them pay attention and say, okay, you know, I'd rather not issue any charge for that. I'd rather not.
In essence, the hope is by having this, we never have to use it. That's all.
Yeah.
But that's pretty cool.
Okay, so we have a resolution on the floor to hold a public hearing on this, matter for next month, and take the floor for that resolution.
I'll offer the motion.
Do I hear a second?
Can I ask a question on this matter, by the way?
No.
When you miss an appointment, is there
Mr.
additional
Young,
cost
Mr.
incurred by
Young,
the
you're
board?
out of order right
Sorry.
now, okay?
Should
Stop
we have an
right
open
now.
meeting?
You can raise your hand, or you wait till we ask for
Okay, we're
questions and
in
comments.
we're in the middle of a vote, and then we'll go to you.
That's fine.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
Nay. We didn't have enough information. When you miss an appointment, when someone doesn't show up, does the village incur additional expense? Was it you went on with your rounds of appointments and no additional expense was incurred?
Well, I think
So
we're
I will ask that. The
not
point
gonna
is,
war on the
yes,
table yet.
he could be at no.
Well, again, but he
someplace
just said
else.
he does all his appointments for a given day. So what additional expenses the village
I
incur?
just answered the question.
No, you didn't,
Stop
actually. I
talking
wanted
over
to
me,
ask the
Mr. Young, So thank you for your.
You didn't ask any
comment.
questions.
We're gonna hold a public hearing on this, so, you know, you can file
Okay,
comments.
by the way, we should not be imposing punitive damages on the citizens of this village just because.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments from the board? All right, next item.
Yeah, the next item is, the approval of the engagement letter with Firefly Administration for, Fort Washington Fire Department LoSAP. They have not increased their fees this year. And, I know that trustee Janice has been involved in, the meetings about the, re-engagement. I believe that all of the villages seem to be pretty happy with Firefly. I know I find them to be very responsive.
Yeah, and that's why we went back to them,
Yeah.
after we had switched, and we went back to Tony, and they've been very good, so, and the fire department is very happy with them, so.
Would you like to offer a motion?
I'll offer the motion.
Mayor to enter into the contract with Firefly?
I'll offer that motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, trustee, Frank will second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next is the, proposal for the idea of a rental registration for, private homes that are being rented out. And, the purpose of this is, one, for communication purposes, health and safety inspections in between rentals, especially now that we have a rodent problem in the village. I think it would, be something that we would want to include as a pre-rental inspection, you know, rodent inspection. So we have nothing on the table yet. A lot of other villages have these laws. We can certainly look at some of these of the other villages and see, you know, how they word them and what they're looking for.
Yeah,
If they're interested.
would prefer to do this also because if there are code violations, being able to give a certificate of occupancy for that tenancy gives us another tool, I think, in the toolbox to manage those issues. We can always suspend that certificate of occupancy. You know, right now, we give a code violation, they end up in court, and that can take months. So I think this will give us some other things that we can try and use to deal with issues as they come up. And I agree with all the health and safety issues that are on. So, you know, interested to hear what the board's thoughts are. And it's something we can start looking at and introduce.
So you talk about rental, let's somebody, you know, let's say they go to Florida and, you know, and they are, somebody else is building a house and they agree to rent their house out for 5 months.
Yep.
So currently I don't know if there probably aren't any there a minimum time or maximum time you can rent? So we have no way of knowing if other sort of word of mouth, somebody would go to
Right, we only
Daniel
find out about it.
Galbraith and say, I want to rent my house for 6 months.
I only find out because real estate agents call me and ask me if they can rent, they need to register their rental, and I said, oh, we don't do that.
So it's not like Airbnb or VRBO.
No, that, I mean, we have no, I believe there's one Airbnb property listed.
But would that also be included in this?
We certainly could.
Yeah,
We don't
and
want
if they're
to-
renting it, they have to do a registry. So part of the way you can craft the law actually is we could set a minimum of, the
3
minimum
months,
allowance
whatever.
for a rental is 3 months, and that would cut off short-term rentals, you know? But so, listen, I think there's emerging legal issues we gotta look at as we do that. But that's something we can take into consideration, as we do it. So, yeah. But as of right now, we have no idea whether a home's rented or not, unless there's an issue and we go knock on the door and we get informed of it, so. Or real estate agent calls around.
Yeah, also, I mean, our homeowners tend to all register for the emergency notifications, but the renters don't. And this way, we have like a pre-rental inspection, we can certainly leave, literature for signing up for emergency notifications as well.
But I think it's keep it simple, right? Share the contact information with us, certify that inspections have been done from a health and safety standpoint, and that's it. We're not looking to make this overburdensome.
Yeah, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, that kind of thing.
And I think we were looking for this to be a very nominal fee,
Yeah,
correct? This
you know,
is
could
not,
be $50, $100.
this is not an arduous permit process, nor something that's expensive. It's nominal just to get people to come in and make sure that homes are safe. So
Exactly.
people are renting, everything is fine.
Correct.
All right, so do we want to move forward? Because I do have a local law that I prepared a couple of years ago on this. I'm sure we can probably need some tweaking at this point, but,
Yeah, I'd say let's make a motion, we can work on it.
we're having a hearing anyway, so let's put it
Can
on.
you get us copies of what the other villages have done?
I believe I did. I'll
Good,
go
good,
back
good.
together.
I
and
just
send it.
don't remember from eons ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so a motion to hold a public hearing, on a rental registration law at the December meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have trustee Dorfman as a second. All in favor? Okay, okay, next is the source study. It did come back, and, the engineers for the, sewer district.
Ronnie, hold on. Mr. Young, your mask is off again. I don't know.
It was
if you
hurting my
know this.
face, actually.
If you need to take a mask break, you can go right outside the front door for a few minutes. It's perfectly acceptable.
These straps are very tight
Thank you,
around
sir.
my
I
ears.
appreciate it. Go ahead,
Oh,
Ronnie.
you're very welcome, Mr. Harrington.
Okay, so the, engineers broke down the, sewer study into a phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 was, and this is in your packet, I believe it's the last one, almost the last page, is the map of phase 1, which is something like, yeah, here it is. 14 properties, 22 properties. Yeah, it's pretty small. This map that shows how many properties are included in the phase 1 study. So, I reached out to them and asked, I'm sorry, it was 32 plus 14 plus 22. That's phase 1. And you can see from the map that it doesn't really cover very much. So I reached out to them and asked if there would be a cost efficiency in doing it in one phase, to do the entire village in one phase. I've not heard back. So I just wanted to keep you all updated, pretty early in the process. So that's where we stand right now.
We don't pay this, the sewer district.
No, no.
Yeah, it's, if you look back a couple of pages,
I mean, this is $250,000.
$57,000 for phase 1. And this is, just for the study, and $175,000 for phase 2, which is the rest of the village.
So what we want to find out is what is the actual price of the study so that then we can have a conversation about it, right? And one of the things, Frank, we're trying to find out too is, we'd love your thoughts on this, right? Do we have to use their engineers?
Yeah.
This was a proposal from their engineers. Could we put this out to bid? and use-
Well, I was gonna ask, can we do an RFP? You could
Yeah.
get pricing from, as long as the scope of work that is that everybody can equally bid on, DMV, I don't think should just be given this on the basis of,
See, I didn't know if they had some specialized knowledge that
Well, they're
some
the
other engineering firm might not.
no, they
They're
just
the
happen
engineers
to,
for the
yeah, they
district.
just happen to be the engineers for most of the water districts and sewer districts on the island. But, you know, H2M does it also, Cameron does it, there's a bunch of other, Wilson and Pope, you know, there's other civil engineering firms
So
out
based
there.
on this, I can go out, you know, we can go out on an
Well-
RFP.
I mean, it's a lot of money to not, I mean, you know, and DMV, you know, as I, you know, look,
And they may come in at the lowest
Look,
price.
I used to be a partner at DMV, full disclosure. I mean, you know, DMV doesn't necessarily concern itself with competitive pricing, because it doesn't have to. Because in most cases, they get these contracts awarded without any competitive bidding. But I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, unless we're not permitted to do that, but why would we? We're paying for it.
It's professional services agreement, so the formal type of competitive bidding would not necessarily be deployed, you would certainly do
The
that.
RFP, evaluate a technical proposal.
And I think this is the comment, right, at the end of the day, Fort Washington Sewer District is going to be one of the best in the work, so I want to make sure they're on board with it, you know? And given this cost structure, we have concerns, you know?
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that the sewer district and the water districts are not going to be very open to, because of their relationships with DMV. I'm fully aware of, I mean, it's, you know.
But I think that's from a legal perspective, Jeff, we need to know whether we have to go through them or can we put it out to them.
I mean, if they've got, like I said, some kind of specialized knowledge that nobody else has, well, then, you know, we're kind of stuck. But if this is something that, you know, any engineer.
Look,
firm
in their
with experience
defense,
in sewerage.
you know, they're an excellent civil engineer. And they're one of the best around, but it doesn't mean they're so much better that we should at least consider other options.
I think we need to see, I mean, right, I think we need to see what else is out there. We don't, this is not where we have to award to the lowest bidder. You know,
Well, no, you would, I mean, you would, to the best
to the,
responsible.
right, to the most responsible.
So, given the conversation we've had, we finally got the proposal back, we wanted to get it in front of you all so you can see what it looks like. Gary, did you have a comment as well, or?
No, I was gonna say, I think any of the engineers firms that, or any other engineering firm besides what Frank mentioned, could go on our GIS and so find all the information we need to do a study.
The other thing is, I don't know if this is a negotiable price, if this is something that, you know, because, you know, I know in my RFP experience that, you know, there is flexibility in the decision-making to not necessarily take the lowest one. And depending on the municipality, sometimes it's wide open, sometimes they say, well, if the next lowest comes within 20%, or you can get them to negotiate within 7%. But I just think that this is a big nut to just give to the.
Agreed.
We'll work on that with you.
Just a point on, it's still not clear to me, quite frankly, what phase one is. I mean, they describe it as cardinal tributary area.
So when we originally spoke to them, hold on,
Hey.
hold on. When we first spoke to them, at that point, one of the issues driving this was the home on Cardinal that had the septic issue.
Yeah, I know, I understand why there's a phase one and phase two. What I don't understand is the scope clearly enough. Like, especially phase two, it's just, I mean, it's a catch-all phrase, and it just, I'm not sure, it isn't fully outlined, I think. So that's the only thing I would be concerned about.
Well, my first thought when they said phase one, I thought they meant all properties north of Stonytown, which made a little more sense, but it's just.
It doesn't, no, it doesn't. That's why when you look at the numbers, it's hard to figure out, okay, if they're only doing this small for the first phase, why?
It's 32 homes plus 14 homes plus 22
Yeah,
homes.
I understand that, But when you extrapolate that into the rest of the village, how much is that gonna be? And
They're saying
like, the number is like,
It doesn't line up.
175.
It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
so it's 3 times as many homes outside of that area? I would say no. It's like 10 times as many homes outside of that area. So,
Yeah, no, these are all
Yeah.
questions that.
so I just wanted to be sure that what we're looking at is really defined clearly.
Understood.
Or, I think, yeah, we're gonna end up having, if we're gonna go out to bid, we're gonna end up having to qualify pretty much bid, I think, eventually, but, yeah. As Frank said, it's big enough money that,
Yeah, if it was, 25,000, 30, then, but $250,000.
A lot of money.
If we save $25,000, that's $25,000 that goes to the village, and then we can do things. Sewers are great, but, it's one of those things that, even homeowners hate to do. You do most work, they cover up with dirt, and you don't really see the benefit of it, so.
this is just a report, it's not even that.
It's just a report.
It's gonna tell us what the actual cost of construction are at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think we need to get to.
Yeah, no, this is our due diligence.
Yeah.
It's definitely due diligence that we need to do, given the reality of what we face, water.
So Frank, probably gonna pull you into this more, just given your experience in public bids and this type of work. All right, next one.
This is, consider regulating unsecured ladders.
I meant to set everybody know about this. This is mine. There's been a couple of complaints about, over the summer, there's been some homes and some construction sites that have had up unsecured ladders for very long amounts of time. We're talking weeks, we're talking, in some cases, months. Two concerns. One is, and I have literature to share with you, and my apologies for not sending it, is criminals will take people's ladders from ladder A, from home A, go to home B and rob their houses using this ladder. It's a great way to get into someone's home. Also from a safety perspective, ladders happen to be very attractive nuisances for children. And a fear is that we don't have anything in our code right now that would force someone to secure, just simply securing the ladder, not looking to find people, just looking for people to lock ladders up, chain them, put them away. Don't leave them out so a kid will have an accident. Don't leave them out so that someone will use it to rob someone else's home. So I'll do I was hoping to have a write-up for you guys ahead of time on this. I looked through NICOM, Ronnie looked through NICOM. There's no other villages that have anything written like this that we can mirror their code, but I'm looking for something simple. And I'll give you guys the articles from security. Remember, my background is with security businesses. And in their top 10 things you need to do to your house, putting on the lights, trimming bushes, one of the items is secure ladders. So,
When I was a kid, my father used to lock the chain lock the ladder to the pipe. So that's because I think
I had a ladder out, I was doing some work on the gutters, but every night I took the chain lock, I just chained it so it can't be opened up, and I chained it to something. So, and it's my backyard, no one's ever gonna see it, but you know what, I like to be safe. So it's really just a pet peeve of mine, and some residents have complained to me over the summer months, they see all these ladders up, so finally I'm taking some action on this.
Questions for Randall or comments?
Yeah, I do believe a few years ago, there was a robbery on, in Hassett Woods, that the second floor window was accessed by an unsecured ladder from somewhere. This is just a property maintenance issue. It could just be a couple, sentence or two as a property
really could
maintenance.
put it into the newsletter just right immediately as a reminder.
Yeah, but what are we doing on the?
But Frank, there are some homes where these ladders are up for months.
So Randall, are you looking to introduce something, or are you gonna do some more research and come back with something?
I'd like to introduce a local law, but let me do some research first and write something up, so.
Okay, since we're having a hearing next
We
month.
could, let's put it on the agenda, if I don't get enough stuff in time, we won't do it, but let me get you something.
But let's put it on the public hearing, we can put together some language, and then we can tweak.
Okay,
Okay, so, the resolution to hold a public hearing on, property maintenance, code, adding, unsecured ladders. And I'm assuming Deputy Mayor, would you like to make that?
I would love to be there.
Okay, so I hear a second.
I'll second.
Okay, I have, that is, Mary Jo Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The last item is a fee for architectural review committee applications. After speaking with Jeff, well, we do not public notice our ARC applications per se. At the beginning of the year in January,
I notice all of the meeting dates, if the meeting date does change, then I do put in a public notice. But we don't specify the properties that are under consideration. What does happen is that all of the affected neighboring properties get a certified letter, letting them know about the project. Mr. Blinkoff feels that since the architecture review committee is mandated by the code, we should be noticing this just as we would any other board meeting. So by doing that, that means that we're incurring costs, which is putting the notice into the newspaper. So, over the last couple of months, I did a permit fee schedule of all of our surrounding villages, and we're the only village that doesn't charge an ARC fee. And it was in your packets, the last page is the list of what all the other villages charge. And it goes from $50 to, Woody crazy.
So Ronnie, when we had spoke, Peter, a lot here, it seems like we have, Gary, you jumped in here too, at least about 3 architectural review applications a month. Stuff going before. Whatever you can report, I can't remember it being less than that. Ronnie, the fee for the legal notice is how much?
What average fee for legal notice would be what, around $350? I mean, it does depend on how many lines,
Depends how many lines and how,
per
yeah,
line.
it's, if it's a little blurb, it could be 150. It's just, because we,
Right, I mean, I just feel like, normally, when I say a bill from the newspaper, it always seems to be around $350, $370, something like that.
All right.
I mean, I think it would be okay. It shouldn't be a big thing, though.
I think $100 would certainly cover the legal notice.
Yeah. I mean, Muncie Park just raised theirs recently.
Yeah, I know.
They had none for a long time.
Well, now it's $400, they just raised it. It was $400 and they raised it.
Well, Sam's Point is, forget it.
Yes, Sands Point is
Sands Point
300
gets
plus
you-
2,500 plus $25,000.
What does it typically do? Can we look back and just see what it usually is for zoning meetings? And then we'll extrapolate it from
Well,
there.
a zoning application is $250.
But don't we do a legal
And
notice? for zoning?
$1,000 deposit towards expense.
No, but what's the cost when we put that in the paper?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's usually around 300, depending
And that
on the
covers
number
the
of
whole
lines.
But we don't have to notice it.
Well, the suggestion is we start. That's where this whole thing came from.
I think open meetings are required.
Many years ago, I think we did notice it, and then, or am I just mistaken?
I don't think we've ever
We ever
noticed
did?
it.
I always thought there was a difference with a committee versus the board.
That's what I
Well,
thought.
that's why I think it was created, when it was created, I think that's why it was created as a committee, not as a board, to not have to deal with the.
I'll certainly prepare a memo for you, but I think there's a difference between something like a recreational committee that's set up through the board and they plan things like races and the like, as opposed to a board that's specifically set up under the code to hold hearings, accept applications, allow neighbors to be heard, and then to prepare a report that they submit to the board for review. So I think the safer course for those are to notice it so that there wouldn't be a situation in which somebody would say, I didn't have the chance to hear it.
Then I will tell you what some of the other villages do that are probably not according to.
Yeah, really.
And just the other thing, sometimes the fees that they charge for architect review is they're paying for an architect consultant in with that.
Right.
That goes with the.
Well,
you have to figure it out.
Yeah, that's the point of the fee, right? You cover that you can collect for incurred costs and salary, right?
So basically for this, we're looking at, I'll call it a nominal fee, to just cover the costs of the publication of the newspaper.
Another thing we could do is we could say, well, here, give us a $500 deposit, and whatever we spend, and Sam's gonna kill me, but whatever we don't spend, we'll refund.
That's
a lot
of paper.
Paperwork.
That's a lot of work.
Just make it simple.
Yeah.
Wait, so,
She's looking at me like,
what's the average amount of ARC submissions per meeting again?
I mean, I threw out 3, Gary, Peter, would you
Yeah.
agree, like minimum of 3, maximum?
Well, it's minimum 3, we've done as many as 6, 7.
So it. how much
It's
is
probably
it cost to
5 if
notice?
you have.
So a meeting would be noticed on each individual.
Five
It
would
would
be
be,
a
it would
little
be
average.
something like, yeah, like 36 Birch, new dwelling, you know, just list.
But as far as cost wise, do we pay for every,
Pay per line,
per line?
word.
How much is it per line?
Per word.
per word, I'm sorry, you're right.
So we should take the average cost of the noticing and the average amount of, yes, and divide it, now, that's what I just said, yes. Oh, okay, good, that's good, yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question to clarify? So this would be in lieu of sending a notice to the.
No, in addition to.
Nice.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was.
Yeah.
The problem with just putting it in the newspaper is, when's the last time you looked in the small print in the newspaper?
I'm the only crazy person who reads legal notice.
Yeah.
Well, the bigger part of
This is in addition,
Look
yeah.
at my whiteboard. Great.
Okay, so we're gonna look at some averages, and then come back to this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go to the last 6 market reports, price it with the paper, and then average it out, and see what we come to.
I'm hoping it's more like $50.
It's probably gonna be 50, 75.
Well, if you take a $5 average, right, if we work from Ronnie and Suzanne's estimate at $350, you probably end up with somewhere around $75 an hour. So
It's just to offset
it
the
doesn't seem
cost,
overbearing.
that's all.
I have two things I just want to add, Ryan.
I mean, I guess the only thing about that is, you know, I think, you know, if you're doing just like, oh, I want to get my peers reviewed, versus I'm doing a whole, you know, a whole knockdown.
But we will, don't forget, on the knockdown,
They don't have
they have a building, they have a big peers.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, I think, okay, fine. Yeah, we should look at, well, that would be good. I think we should review whatever numbers we're talking about with also the permit schedule so that we can put it into context.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I understand.
All right, can I just bring 2 other items?
I'm sorry?
Can I raise 2 other items?
Of course.
So last month, we talked about street openings and the requirement for people to fix a bad street opening before they get a CO. So I noticed on Wood Valley, it appears that the people have moved into the house, and that road opening is getting worse and worse and worse. It's
24 Wood Valley.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse and
I
worse.
spoke to the contractor.
It's it's jarring now.
Yeah,
And it looks like they're in the house, so they must have gotten their CO.
that I don't know, because I haven't signed to close the street opening yet. So, I don't know besides that.
I mean, and, you
Is
know.
that a new house?
That's a new house, yeah.
So we have a bond.
Now, my question is that something that we're responsible for as part of our impact fee, or is that something that the homeowner is responsible for? Because the purpose of the impact fee was to pay for things like road damage but that, I think that the impact fee, at least when we first put it together, and I was involved in that, was to take care of damage by trucks and those type of things.
I think it's more of an
This is a
overall,
different thing.
and this is very specific.
This is a specific, they opened the street to bring gas across.
Yep.
And now they should be responsible for a satisfactory.
I agree. You're right. It's not part of
I
the.
mean, that's exactly why we take.
Frank, they're not always tied to a big project, so I would say in other villages, what we have a fee for the village engineer to look at the road opening in the end, at how they're doing it, and it's also a small bond. Because a road opening can be just somebody getting new gas service to the house.
That one was
Not-
water.
Yeah.
24 was water.
Yeah.
That's when they opened that up.
So I would just, these are all individual permits. Road open is a separate permit. So we should attach, either an inspection fee and a bond to that specific permit.
Because there's a lot of.
Because the roads are important, yeah.
You don't notice them in a car, but go ride a bike. Every street you go in, it seems that there was a road opening.
Yeah.
So you don't attach a bond, so if somebody is just coming doing a road opening to put the gas line in, they get a permit, there's no bond for that.
No, we have a bond, National Grid gives us a bond, and all of the plumbers have bonds with us to do the road opening.
Then we have water, openings for water, too.
Yeah, they posted $10,000
So
bond.
we have a bond, we should have a bond.
Yes.
theoretically, for
Yes.
this.
I'll call them again.
So that's the recourse, is the bond.
The second thing is also.
I mean, we hope they'll fix it without having to go get the bond, it's a lot easier, but.
Also, our bike riding yesterday, the other thing I noticed is there seems to be a real lack of Sunday enforcement from the village. So yesterday, I witnessed 2 contractors working. I saw someone working on a race car with a big trailer in front of the street with a racing car on it. And then they were working in their driveway on this race car. That was the new house on the corner of Winter Valley and Farmview, the one on the triangle.
Oh, yeah.
They were working on it in the street.
They took it off the trailer, they had it on the street, they were trying to get it into the driveway, so they were trying to start it. I mean, this is on Sunday. It was a cool race car, but.
I mean, that's kind of like the
But
homeowner.
the other thing I
Probably
noticed is,
really
you're right,
something we wouldn't.
the other thing I've noticed is when people do like roofing jobs and it takes 4 or 5 days, the contractors leave their truck in their driveway over the weekend, which,
Yeah, that's not permitted.
it's a commercial vehicle in a driveway, which we don't permit, and it's also, giant truck with advertising on it. So I think we have to make it clear to residents that if they're, look, I know it's a hassle for the contractor, because you have to take his truck back to the yard for the weekend and bring it back on Monday. It's a lot easier for them to just leave it there. But, I think that these are little quality of life things that I'm starting to notice.
I've seen trucks like that for not just, especially the guy I think next door to you.
Yeah, well,
That's been there for like a week or 2
And
weeks at a time.
I told him today that, I said, look, that clearly is not permitted, and I said, you're my neighbor, but, well, we didn't know, but we didn't know. Which is the general response, right? But do we have any code enforcement on Sundays?
No. I don't.
Whereas other villages do.
Okay, Frank, hold on. Have we ever had, as long as I've been here, I've never noticed to have Sunday code enforcement.
No.
Did we ever have Sunday code enforcement?
I don't know if anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, nobody's been here as long as me, I guess, but I remember when I first started here, I believe Robert alternated Saturdays and Sundays.
But you know why we don't have too much enforcement on Sundays? Is until your situation that you just brought up, it's really rare that we've ever had somebody doing something on a Sunday. Because if we had more, we'd ask Robert to swap his days. Saturday's traditionally been a bad day.
So it depends on how,
Right.
you gotta.
They're busier now than ever.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and the one day of the week that we're very strict on enforcing rules, there's no one to enforce those rules.
So, you're right. So,
I mean, you can
this is
call
something we're
police
gonna.
on this stuff, they are empowered, to enforce our code.
Okay, so here's, I think, what we gotta start looking at. I agree with you, Frank. We want our code enforced, right? I would encourage anybody, if you see an issue, take a picture, send Robert the information, please include Ronnie and I on it, and we can follow up as well. If it's a building issue, let's include Peter as well, so you can have line of sight into it. And then, I've been talking to Robert about some code enforcement, kind of plans for the future. And listen, if he gives us the hours, Ronnie and I have been working on schedule. We can talk to him about floating some days around, but at the end of the day, he's working a lot of hours over a 2-week period. I'm not saying, it's hard to get him to do more and expect more and more out of one person. So we may have to look at, and I've talked to him about this, is give us more flexibility, maybe supplementing some additional service on that. Whether pulling somebody off a civil service list or, subcontracting.
Well, there are other villages.
Well, actually, this is code enforcement police powers, so it has to be done under civil service, under someone employed by the village. So let us take that back, but I'd say in the meantime, if you see issues, take a picture, send it right away, because that can document the time and everything, and then Robert can follow up on the next day he's in, and if he's out for some reason, then Ronnie and myself or Peter can.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you said me like the pictures, I can certainly do.
Yeah, the taxi cabs and all that stuff.
Which
They're still doing it deluxe, they're still flying.
Any other issues?
Anybody else on the board? Okay, we have our history report. That was
What's the latest, Mitchell?
submitted by Mitchell, and another one.
Keep it streamlined for tonight.
I
Got a lot going on.
Basically, back in September, I had the wonderful pleasure of speaking to a former Broadway resident, the American classical composer Damon Thorpe. He grew up
on Crabtree, and he attended Flower Hill School. He was sharing with me some really interesting things about the school. He remembers it very well. He was sharing how, he remembers how, it was a small school, it was 5 classrooms, how the cafeteria was in the same room as the gym and the stage. It was just really interesting to hear him all these things. I mean, it would have been my elementary school. We didn't hear all the time. It's really interesting. I'm very appreciative for his time today.
Thank you. In addition, I think Rhoda submitted something as well, that's in everybody's packet. Talks about the early days of petitioning to incorporate the village, correct? So everybody can review that. And we'll talk about newsletters following this. We're gonna start a monthly history newsletter. We can talk about it with Gary and Mary Jo as well. And actually, this might be a good one to start with the early part of the village, and then we can work in some of the others.
And Brian, I want to apologize to you for how I came.
So do not apologize at all, Mitchell, don't worry. All right, that's it for history report. Public comment. Residents, would you like to speak?
Yes, so I would start by saying that we are probably as tired of coming here and talking about this as you are seniors. But it's important, and it's just not changing. We have been Flower Hill residents for almost 30 years. And in the past couple of years, our quality of life as village residents has declined dramatically. It's the parking, it's the rodents, it's just awful, and I don't see it getting any better, I actually see it getting worse. You know, for 2 years, we've been coming here and asking, please help us. You know, help us put this behind us, help us move on. And it's, you know, we've had a million times we walk out thinking we have a solution, and then we end up getting shot down again. We are spending a fortune right now on exterminator services. And it's to no avail, because every day keeps going, the Department of Health, the Department of Food Service Safety, the Nassau County, something supervisor that we call, our own exterminator. Everybody says unless and until the food source and the nests are eliminated, they're just going to keep on coming. So we're spending all this money. We walk out in our backyard and we see them. We're both dead and alive. I mean, that's not what you would expect when you walk down New York. So it's frustrating. I feel like we're not getting anywhere with that. And then we go back to the age-old issue of the non-resident parking. It's really, it's just awful. It's not just parking. And we always talk about parking at some sort of denial. It's not just parking. It's racing through the neighborhood to try and get to a spot. It is going through the stop signs. It is driving up on our lawns or on people's driveways to do 3-point turns to beat the other guy who's coming for that last parking spot. It's getting changed in the streets. It's leaving behind litter. And then it's the really rude and aggressive manner in which they respond to the residents there, which I personally have experienced. In the perfect world, we will agree, we find a way, right, to have unlimited parking for all of our residents and their guests, and we're going to second that in, you know, from East Hills to look at. I'm hoping that we're going to continue to try and exhaust any and all options for us to do that. But if we can't do that, we need to do something else. And I know in the September meeting, we heard about 3 different options that were presented. So it was additional parking on Millwood Road, it was limiting parking in the streets of Flower Hill, and it was having them park further away and then being chauffeured back to their work sites. In my conversation with some of you, I'm getting the sense that the top contender of those 3 options would be the Millwood Road option. And I've expressed some concerns about that, and still continue to have those concerns. It's with safety and traffic. You know, that's already an overwhelmed road. Any of us who have tried to come out of Dunkin' Donuts or tried to come out of my driveway, or tried to come out of Brian Cooper,
you know how bad that is. I think adding more volume in that area is just gonna make matters worse. Having said all of that, you said to me, but we're doing this, and that's gonna eliminate the parking issue in the front of our houses. I get it, I understand why we'd be considering that. I don't think that's necessarily what you're saying, and I don't believe that's what's gonna happen. So you create those extra parking spots. I assume the parking regulations will be the same as they are for the rest of the village, right? Given that, I would expect that it's safe to assume that those spots will be fully occupied by the auto body shop, starting at 7 a.m. in the morning. And perhaps will still overflow into our neighborhood, depending on whether they choose to use those spots for their employees parking or the customer cars, right? We have no control over what they put in those spots. So that's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. that they'll be there. The lunch crews for the pizzeria and Brian and Cougar start at 11 a.m. The dinner crews start at between 3:30 and 4 p.m. So we're still gonna have all of them in the front. And then my concern is when the auto body shop leaves at 5 o'clock, those spots then become parking for Brian Cooper patrons, either the patrons themselves or the valet parking. So in my mind, we have the same problem existing in the front, and now we have a new problem in the back. So it's kind of a lose-lose proposition. I know, the other option was limiting the parking on the streets, and we said in that September meeting that there had been a petition against that. And I was surprised then, and I kind of continue to be confused by that, because I would expect that the petition would be a response to a proposed course of action. And at that point in time, we haven't talked about what that would look like. Nobody talked about, are we talking about prohibiting parking all day, or are we talking about prohibiting it for a couple hours here and there? It just hadn't been discussed, so I guess I don't really understand. I'm sorry?
Public comments limited to 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I gotta ask you to wrap it up there, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But I guess I'm wondering how people are making decisions about whether or not they want to sign a petition against something when we don't know what that was.
I did not ask those residents that question, so I don't know. We had talked about it in several meetings. So, that was something that was also put out there, right? Talked about multiple times. So why those folks did it, that's something, either way, they've expressed their opinion. And so this board now has to deal with that. We have residents that want one thing and residents that want another thing. So, what I'd say is, I guess my question to you is, and from the board perspective, what are you looking for? I think different times I've heard things, when we throw different things out, I've heard opposition, I've heard support for different things. What is your perfect scenario that we can do under the law?
Since the beginning, I have said what I'm trying to do is discontinue the parking, the traffic, the whatever you want to call it, in front of our homes. I want to go back to living in a residential area as opposed to living in what feels like a commercial parking lot. I said that from the beginning. I want to preserve the peace of our neighborhood. I want to preserve my property values. So what I'm looking for is to get them to stop parking and driving through and littering and doing all of that other stuff in front of our homes.
So on the quality of life issues, let us talk to the police about that, and let's talk to Broadward. People getting changed in the street and things like that, if there's things that we can do, we'll try to address that. I think we've been more focused on the parking issue and not some of these, which is obviously a different impact. On the parking issue, we keep getting caught in the bind, but we can't just have resident parking on the block, right? It's all or nothing. I think the long-term solution is Middle Neck Road. I know you're skeptical of it. I think we're gonna have to try it and see, and try different combinations of things to do it. That's my belief. I've been down there multiple times. Even in the last month, I go at different times. I look, I see your cars in front. Sometimes I see your cars. I've stopped when your neighbor was coming out to their car at one point. So I know at different times people are getting access. I know you had a delivery and you had a problem that day. So I mean, I've tried to look for a rhyme or reason to it. I think we'll continue to communicate to the shop owners and keep encouraging them to find alternative parking. I think this board thinks it has to continue to look at some ideas, but I really do believe Middle Neck Road. I know you're skeptical, but will be the long-term solution. As part of that, you asked us to look outside the box. We went to a traffic engineer that had done work around that area, right? And we asked them, that was their recommendation. So, as part of what we're looking to do long-term on Middle Neck Road, we're gonna have to bring a traffic engineer in, so we can ask them to take a look at all these ideas again too, and just see if there's something they missed. I think this board is committed to trying to help you find a solution. It's just, unfortunately, there's not an easy answer. So,
What happened to the law firm on the corner that they were supposed to be using? Because there's 2 cars there tonight, and there's 20 cars parked up outside the road.
I don't know. It looked like they were using it for a while, and they stopped, and now I know there's also tenants in there, so we can follow up on that one.
Because there's gonna be a bad accident there, because you've got one guy wheeling around the corner at 50, racing for a spot, another guy coming down Peach Street, blowing through the stop sign. You're gonna have a head-on collision, or you're gonna have a kid that's at the street who's gonna get taken out. You wait and see.
I mean, it's bad. And like I said, we've been really patient. Every single time you've asked us to work with you, to wait, to do that, and we have done so. But at some point.
Listen, this is why we have put a lot of pressure on the county to get this Middle Neck Road agreement done. And this has been going on for 10 years, and I think we finally got there, knock on wood. But I hear your concern. All right, if you have any other questions or comments?
This maybe predates my time on the board, but just a question. Had stickers like you do at the train station, and is that not legal?
No.
You can't have their street.
Jeff,
It's a public street.
Jeff, comment on this, because we've talked about this before.
And I apologize, because you probably have.
You can have the same restrictions on everybody who uses the road, but you can't have differing restrictions to residents and non-residents.
So if we were to make, say 2-hour parking only, that means the residents also only put on 2 hours. Or no parking between, let's say we find a window that screws them up really bad. So let's say it's between 2 and 5. No parking between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. But then the residents have to understand that between 2 and 5, they can't park in front of their house either. So there's the problem that the mayor was trying to explain is that, and as council just said, you cannot have different rules for different people on a public road.
I understand everything that you're saying there, but my question is when we were saying that people were saying they don't want these restrictions, if you don't know what it looks like, right? So we're saying, like you had said, between 2 and 5. Maybe it's between knowing their schedules like we do, if it's between 8 and 10 and 6 and 8 or something like that. Maybe when you're first saying to me, hey, well, they're going to try and block parking on this road, I'm going to be opposed to that. But then if you point out to me it's for a couple of hours a day, and each side of the day, and I realize that's really not such a major imposition to me, particularly if it then restores the residential nature of where we live. Just because they're not parked in front of your house, it can be fun to drive down your street and see that. And I think that's the piece of the puzzle that's missing. We have different factions coming out this, and I don't feel like there's been a cohesive, hey, look, these are really our 3 options, let's talk about them. I just don't think that's happening.
So I think we need to take possession of Middle Neck Road in order to do that, or at least be, know where the legislature's at on it, which we'll find out in the middle of this month. So I guess what I would ask for the residents is, let us get through this month, get the IMA done with the county. If it doesn't get done, I think, I would say maybe next month we move ahead with the traffic engineer anyway, because at that point we'll know. I can't see us not getting this deal done with the county. I'd be very surprised. So if we get this IMA approved this month, we're in a better position to sit down with the traffic engineer. I think with the time frame for when we're taking over the road and look at what some of those different options are and get everybody's feedback in a cohesive way. That's what I would ask is, I guess, give us another one.
I had a question.
And sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you, what's your sense on the parking issue in terms of, is it as bad as ever? Is it getting worse? Is it, or does it go through periods of inflow?
It's a great question. It is, there are days that are better than others, for sure. But it is on the whole getting worse. As we then open up more parking spots, I mean, again, it's not like people haven't been trying, right? You guys opened up those first 5 spots the first time, you opened up another 5 spots another time. But what's happening is every time they get more spots, they just bring in, people who were making an effort to park elsewhere are now just parking there. So, it's not improving.
Do you think if we put the no parking back in place, should we see how that goes?
I think
Like, is it because people have got attracted there now, or?
I don't think that's gonna help. I
Okay.
think what was happening was like we've seen them. Some of the people that used to be parking on Memorial Boulevard or whatever are now parking over here because there were more spots, right? It was easier for them.
Sunny, I'm sorry, Sunny, you had your hand raised first.
Yes, I agree with her. We personally spoke to the auto shop owners, and after that, they stopped actually parking in front of our house. But then now the Brian Cooper people are coming in to park.
Okay.
We have it on camera, they're racing down the street, with each other, making a big quick turn in that small narrow road. When was it? One time, it had, crashed into our neighbor's property. They're
Okay.
trying to make that 3-point turn. So that's, we have that on camera as well.
Can you send us those videos, please?
Yes, I can send you
I think
all, yes.
that would help us with some of the engagement with people, okay?
Yes, and the manners that they have, they're not very nice at all. So, the quality of life, like what Carrie said, it's, why do we have to suffer so much because of these people who don't live here? And what Carrie said, it was never like this before. So, I mean, what happened before that, that didn't happen now, that they're parking here before they were parking here, like what was the difference,
Okay, thank you.
I don't understand how it was controlled previously, but now it's not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Young?
Yes, I have an observation / question. Remember how, when we had restricted parking on Sunnyvale Road during our Christmas display? And then you handed out passes to residents to give to their guests so they can park on the street, even though it said no parking? What's different here?
That was an emergency situation dealing with a safety circumstance.
I'm sorry, I don't.
It was an emergent situation dealing with a safety circumstance over a brief period of time. This would be.
And that makes it different?
Yes,
Based on what?
based on it being an emergency situation with a safety concern over a
Is
brief
there a law
period
that
of
you
time.
can cite that makes it different, that you can point to in the New York State code or law or something?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
No, okay. I said, is there a specific law that you can cite that makes it a different situation? That you just talk gobbledygook. I mean, I don't see the difference.
Mr. Young,
It's gobbledygook.
Mr. Young.
If you can
Mr.
get,
Young.
hang on, let me finish. Don't,
No, sir.
Don't
Because
scream
there
at
is
me.
a
No,
policy
no,
for a
sir.
mask. Please put your mask on,
You guys are silly.
and then I will be happy to respond.
Well, let me tell you, finish what I'm saying. If you can issue a permit for me to give to my guests to park in front of my house at Christmas, why can't you give them permits to park in front of their houses and avoid anyone else parking? That's my point. And you're doing some gobbledygook about like an emergency situation for an interim period of time. Boom. What the hell is happening?
So, Mr. Young?
I'm talking to the mayor here.
No.
Excuse me,
Mr.
the attorney.
Young, I run the meeting here.
You know, but
Mr. Young.
Blumenthal is going to answer my question.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Young.
Yes.
Village attorney addressed it.
And he
You
didn't
also
address it,
discussed this with the
he did not
residents.
address it to our satisfaction.
I am sorry you are
He
still
made up some
satisfied.
bull
Thank you.
crap and said, okay, it's addressed now.
All right.
To me, the situation is the same in front of my house at Christmas as it should be for them to park their cars, issue a special permit.
Thank you, appreciate that
All
observation.
right, so I just wanted to take that under
Any other
advisement.
public comments?
Yes, I do.
You have the floor, Mr. Young.
You guys get the letter?
Mr. Young,
I'm
sorry. You gotta keep your mask on.
I'm far away from you. You can
No,
see my face.
Mr. Young,
Mr. Young,
Yes.
you need to have your mask on.
Really?
Yes.
I'm like 20 feet away from anyone.
Mr. Young.
What
put your
part
mask-
of you to put your mask on?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Mary Jo? Okay, Mary Jo, thank you for the,
Do you have a
don't
comment?
be mocking me.
Mr. Young.
Yes, I do. Did you get the letter I gave you early this evening?
Mr. Young, I have.
Did you get the letter?
I
Did
have
you also?
not had a chance to copy it.
All right, the same letter I gave you before the June trustees meeting. Did you all read that? How many people here were trustee in June? Raise your hands.
Every single one.
Every single one. So you read the letter in June, correct? Have you taken action?
Mr. Young?
I asked the question, have you taken action? Say yes or no.
Mr. Young, I'm
Have you
going to give
taken
you an
action?
answer. Yes, we have. Mr.
Really?
Blinkoff,
And what's the
could you
action?
please respond?
Well, according to Mr. Blinkoff, he said, his understanding is not the same as our story. That we actually, both my wife and I, experienced the wrath of your village enforcer, right? And by the way, there was no reason why he had to come back to our house 3 times, allegedly. First, he came by at 8 o'clock in the morning to take pictures, which he actually mislabeled and misrepresented evidence that he submitted to the court, which is actually a felony under the New York State Criminal Penal Code, right? Then he came back at 11:30 to give us summonses they threw in the bushes. Then he came back at 2:30, claiming that he had no idea that we made phone calls to Village Hall, and then he basically pumped his fist in front of my wife's face. And you guys have taken no action against that, right? That to me is despicable. You've never contacted us. You've never asked for our side of the story. You've never actually did any inquiry, right? Why? My question is why have you kept this guy? Oh, by the way, does he carry a gun when he kind of enforces code around the village? He's an ex-NYPD officer. I was told by the Nassau County DA he can carry a gun. Does he carry a gun? I was told by the attorney he doesn't know. And you've never instructed him not to. So basically, he can carry a gun around the village. All right? Is that correct?
He's allowed to.
Okay, what's the question? Why did he come back to our house a 3rd time only to yell at us and then pump his fist in front of my wife's face? That's what I want to know. Did you ask him those questions?
Mr. Young,
Yes.
are you done with your comments?
No, I have nothing more to say, but you can
Finish your
comment.
comments, sir. You have 3 minutes. Please. finish
No,
your comments.
how many minutes do you guys have? And by the way, remember January 2018? How many minutes did you have when you were trying to degrade me and my family with your stupid mimeograph handouts and my text messages, voicemails that I left for you? How many minutes did that take? And by the way, we weren't even on the agenda that evening. January 2018, when you started this whole harassment. Actually, it was Christmas of 2017 when you put your guy in front of my house to basically yell at people and chase them away in front of my house at Christmas. That's what you did, Brian Harrington. All right? You and the mayor, Mad Mac. All right? You did that. You're responsible for that. You had no follow-up. The letter we sent you months ago. We never got an inquiry from anybody. We had to actually talk to Mr. Blinkoff. He said, oh, that's not our understanding. Well, how do you know it's not? I mean, did you ever ask us questions about what happened? No, of course not. You sent this guy to our house multiple times after this incident occurred. Then he's lurking around in the bushes taking photos. Oh, you got a snowflake on the side of your house that no one actually sees. But that was so important to you, Harrington, that you had to send him back to our house to cause further harassment. All right, that's what's going on in this freaking village of yours. You and Mayor Mad Mac. The only people I hold accountable for this atrocious behavior is you, Harrington. That's it. Nobody else on this board, right? You. You were there in January 2018. You and Mayor Mad Mac caused this whole circumstance. Before that, under Mayor Phillips, everything was fine. Suddenly, Mad Mac comes into control, and suddenly everything goes off the freaking rails. All right, that's what happened. Right, you don't know how to manage anything. You think you're some kind of a leader, a mayor? No, you should resign. You should resign in disgrace for what you've done to us. Right, you should be resigning right now, and you should fire a freaking code enforcer who runs around with a gun, threatening people, and also telling everybody in the village, oh, I'm an ex-NYPD officer. What is that supposed to mean? We're supposed to be frightened? Oh, you're an ex-NYPD officer, so you can threaten us now? I've had enough. God bless you all, man. I'm out of here.
For the record, Mr. Blinkoff, could you please respond to the current situation?
I'm sorry to see that Mr. Young has left. I assume this is being recorded, I don't know, but the point of the matter is that this case is pending in Village Justice Court right now, where the issues will be addressed, where Mr. Young has the opportunity to be heard, where the case was in fact scheduled for trial last week, October 27th. The people were ready to proceed. Mr. Young had filed a motion which had been rejected by the court as improperly filed. Mr. Young requested and was granted an adjournment on October 27th, and the case did not go forward. It will be held in November should the defendant appear. And that's where I believe the issues should be addressed.
And I will just say to everybody, I think from the beginning, back to the time period that Mr. Young stated, this village has been trying to work with him and the surrounding residents to address the community impact issues. We stand ready, willing, and open to working with that. But again, that's got to be done in cooperation with everyone. So I'm sorry he feels that way. that's where the issue stands at this time. That's it. Any other comments from the public? Okay. With that,
I just want to commend the trustees for that amazing food drive. That's amazing.
yes, everybody please donate to the food drive. It is going into the holiday season and there are many people in need, especially due to still COVID-19 and the other supply chain issues.
And with that, is there a motion to close? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, all in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
I just called Rhoda, I spoke to her,